The ground beneath your feet hides a secret only visible from the sky. These are geoglyphs, massive designs carved into the earth by ancient cultures, and their true purpose has sparked debate for centuries. By the end of this journey, you will see human history from an entirely new perspective, uncovering why these colossal puzzles were made. Were they meant as calendars for the stars, sacred paths for the gods, or something even more unexpected? What does it mean to create a masterpiece you can never fully see? What story does a desert tell when viewed from the clouds? These immense artworks are known as geoglyphs, a word meaning earth writing. They are not painted on walls or carved into stone, but etched directly into the very skin of the planet. Ancient makers created them through two primary methods. One is the additive technique, where countless stones or pieces of gravel are carefully arranged into lines and shapes. The other is subtractive, where the top layer of dark soil or pebbles is scraped away to reveal a much lighter colored stratum beneath. This act of revealing creates a stark, lasting contrast, a line drawn by removing what surrounds it. The result is a design of staggering scale, often hundreds of feet long, sometimes stretching for miles. This scale is the first and greatest clue to their mystery. A person standing on the ground might see only a trench or a line of rocks vanishing into the distance. To comprehend the form, a running spider, a perfect spiral, a towering humanoid figure, you must rise above it. You must achieve a perspective that was, for the cultures that built them, physically impossible. This fundamental disconnect is the heart of the puzzle. Why would a society invest immense communal effort, over generations perhaps, to create a masterpiece whose full glory they could never witness? The answer must lie in a belief system where the audience was not human. The canvas was the earth, but the intended viewers were the gods in the sky, the spirits of the mountains, or the celestial bodies themselves. This transforms a geoglyph from a simple drawing into a form of communication, a prayer made permanent in the landscape, setting the stage for us to encounter 25 of the most astonishing examples ever discovered. High on the arid plains of southern Peru, the desert floor holds a gallery of giants. For nearly 2,000 years, the Nazca culture transformed this vast, lifeless basin into a canvas of breathtaking scale. They did not build upward with stone, but outward with intention, carefully removing a layer of dark, sun-baked pebbles to expose the creamy, lighter sand beneath. This simple act of subtraction created lines of stunning clarity, lines that coalesce into forms so large they defy comprehension from the ground. A hummingbird with wings spread 120 meters wide, a spider with legs perfectly proportioned, a monkey with a spiraling tail, and a strange, large-eyed figure that many call the astronaut, all lie etched upon the pampa. The precision involved is humbling. These are not rough sketches, but geometrically perfect creations maintained across centuries in one of the driest climates on the planet, where rain falls perhaps once a decade. This preservation is a fortunate accident of environment, freezing a moment of ancient ingenuity in time. To stand beside one of these lines is to see only a shallow groove wandering toward the horizon. The full picture remains utterly hidden, a secret kept by the landscape itself. This is the core of the Nazca Enigma, a question that has fueled decades of research and speculation. Why create what you cannot see? The theories are as grand as the drawings themselves. One prominent idea suggests they were sacred pathways, meant for ceremonial processions where walking the line was a form of prayer, a physical journey mirroring a spiritual one. Another compelling argument points skyward, proposing the lines form a colossal astronomical calendar, with key shapes aligning with the rising and setting of the sun, moon, and stars during important seasonal cycles. Some researchers have looked at the intricate, interconnected lines and seen a sophisticated map of underground water sources, vital for survival in such a harsh environment. Each theory offers a different lens, a different story about a people trying to communicate with forces greater than themselves, whether those forces were gods in the heavens or water deep within the earth. The Nazca Lines present the perfect prototype of the geoglyph mystery, a puzzle written in soil and scale that invites us to look deeper. Its long, graceful beak stretches forward, a precise line etched into the desert that points unerringly toward the point on the horizon where the sun sinks during the summer solstice. This is not a random feature but a deliberate alignment, a stone and sand sundial of monumental proportions. For those who see a celestial map in the Nazca Desert, the hummingbird is a cornerstone of their argument. It suggests a culture deeply attuned to the rhythms of the heavens, one that marked the longest day of the year with a symbol of agility and life, permanently anchoring a solar event to the Earth itself. The precision required to achieve this alignment across such a vast distance speaks to a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and geometry, a knowledge passed down and executed with care over generations. Yet another interpretation takes flight from the symbol itself. In many Andean cultures, the hummingbird was seen as a miraculous creature, a being that could defy the ordinary laws of motion by hovering and even flying backwards. This made it a potent symbol, perhaps a messenger capable of traversing the realms between the human world and the divine, or a direct representation of a deity associated with resurrection and life's enduring energy. Its placement is also telling, situated within a complex landscape of other lines and shapes, and within sight of what researchers believe were important ceremonial centers. This positioning implies it was part of a larger sacred geography, a focal point in a ritual landscape where processions might have begun or ended, where ceremonies aligned with the solstice sun could be performed in the shadow, or rather in the light, of this eternal bird. The hummingbird, in all its elegant simplicity, captures the entire debate in a single form. Is it a scientific instrument, a religious icon, or a profound fusion of both? It invites us to see ancient people not as primitive, but as profound observers who wove their understanding of the natural world and the spiritual world into the very fabric of their homeland. While the Nazca figures captivate with their intricate animal forms, a different kind of giant watches from the coast, carved into the steep, sandy face of a peninsular hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The Paracas Candelabra presents an entirely different kind of mystery. This geoglyph is not a creature of the desert, but a stark, geometric symbol, a massive trident or three-branched candlestick standing nearly 200 meters tall. Its lines are deep trenches, dug into the hillside and reinforced with stones, creating a design of such scale and clarity that it can be seen by ships sailing many miles out to sea. This crucial detail, its visibility from the ocean, shifts the entire conversation. Here, the intended audience may not have been celestial gods, but very human travelers navigating the treacherous waters of the ancient world. The Paracas culture, who thrived here centuries before the Nazca, were skilled mariners. One compelling theory paints the candelabra as a monumental navigational aid, a kind of terrestrial lighthouse. For sailors returning from long voyages, the distinctive three-pronged shape, etched on the north-facing slope, would have been an unmistakable landmark, signaling the location of a safe bay or a vital freshwater source. It transforms from a drawing into a practical tool, a giant signpost written into the land itself, yet its purpose likely ran deeper than simple geography. The trident shape is a powerful and recurring symbol in Andean mythology, often associated with Viracocha, the great creator god who is said to wield lightning and control the storms. For a seafaring people, appeasing such a deity would have been a matter of survival. The candelabra could thus be a permanent offering, a plea for calm seas and safe passage. its form mirroring the divine weapon that commanded the very elements these sailors feared. Furthermore, the Paracas are known for their sophisticated shamanic rituals, which frequently involved the use of the San Pedro cactus, a plant with profound psychoactive properties. Some researchers see a direct connection, noting the cactus itself often grows in a distinctive, multi-ribbed column that strikingly resembles the form of the candelabra. This suggests the geoglyph might have served as a sacred symbol or even a ritual map for spiritual journeys, grounding an otherworldly experience in a physical, colossal marker on the landscape. The Paracas Candelabra, therefore, stands at a powerful crossroads. It is a potential guide for ships, a symbol for the gods, and a marker for the spirit, all at once. It reminds us that for ancient cultures, the line between the practical and the sacred, the navigational and the numinous, was often beautifully, mysteriously blurred. Far from the ocean's edge, in the stark, silent expanse of Chile's Atacama Desert, another figure of impossible scale stares up at the sky. This is the Atacama giant, the largest prehistoric human-like figure found anywhere on Earth. At 119 meters from head to toe, this colossal being is not a solitary wonder, but the central figure in a vast, open-air gallery known collectively as the Atacama Giant Geoglyphs. Its form is strikingly geometric, with a large, rectangular head and a body adorned with distinct, parallel stripes running down its legs, a style that speaks of a different artistic language than the fluid animal forms of Nazca. Here, the design seems less about representing life and more about mapping function, about turning the human form itself into a tool for reading the cosmos. The most compelling theory surrounding this giant paints it as a monumental calendar, a communal clock etched into the desert floor. For the ancient peoples of this region, who were likely pastoralists guiding herds across a landscape where survival was dictated by the most subtle seasonal shifts, tracking time was not an abstract science but a vital necessity. Researchers note that the lines radiating from the giant's head, along with the specific positions of its hands and feet, appear to align with the rising and setting points of the sun on critical days, the solstices and equinoxes that mark the turning of the year. A person standing at a certain point on the figure at dawn on the winter solstice, for instance, might see the sun rise directly over one of its outstretched limbs, a dramatic, tangible announcement of the season's change. This transforms the giant from a mysterious deity into a pragmatic guide, a silent teacher that helped an entire community synchronize their movements with the heavens, telling them when to move their herds to new pastures or when to anticipate the sparse rains. This interpretation offers a powerful contrast to sites viewed primarily as sacred offerings. The Atacama giant suggests a world where the spiritual and the practical were inseparable, where understanding the sky was a form of reverence that directly sustained life. It represents a dialogue between a people and their environment, a permanent, communal solution to the eternal question of when, written in lines so large they could only be read by the sun itself. Crossing an ocean and leaping millennia, a different kind of guardian is etched into a green English hillside. The Uffington white horse is a creature of elegant, almost abstract lines, a 110-meter-long figure carved not into dark desert varnish, but into the brilliant white chalk bedrock of Oxfordshire. Its form is a study in minimalist grace, a single, continuous ribbon of white flowing across the slope to suggest a horse in dynamic motion, captured forever in a single, elegant stride. This is not a naturalistic portrait, but a symbol, a signature in the land whose very style places its creation in the distant late Bronze or early Iron Age, a time of profound change and emerging tribal identities. The first mystery it presents is one of identity. For generations, locals have called it a horse, yet its elongated body, strange beak-like head, and trailing legs have led some scholars to whisper another possibility. Could this be a representation of a dragon, perhaps linked to the nearby legend of St. George? The hill upon which it rests is named Dragon Hill, a flat-topped mound where folklore says the dragon's blood was spilled, leaving a bare patch where grass refuses to grow. This connection weaves the geoglyph into a rich tapestry of myth, suggesting its meaning may have evolved over centuries, from a pagan symbol to a landmark absorbed into a new Christianized folklore. Its function is equally layered in possibility. It sits directly below the ramparts of Uffington Castle, an ancient hill fort, leading to the compelling theory that the horse served as a territorial marker, a colossal badge of pride and ownership visible for miles across the rolling countryside. It declared in no uncertain terms who held this high ground, yet its placement and form also hint at a deeper ceremonial purpose. The horse's eye aligns with the rising sun during seasonal festivals, and the figure itself seems to be galloping along a prehistoric trackway that leads to a Neolithic burial mound. This careful positioning within a ritual landscape suggests it may have been a focal point for ceremonies, perhaps celebrating the cycles of the sun, the fertility of the land, or honoring ancestors. But perhaps the most powerful testament to its significance is not in its ancient creation, but in its enduring care. For over 3,000 years, local communities have engaged in a tradition known as scouring, gathering regularly to clear encroaching grass and weeds from the chalk trenches. This act of maintenance, repeated for generations, is a quiet, profound ritual in itself. It transformed the horse from a static monument into a living covenant between the people and their past, a shared responsibility that kept the symbol alive, ensuring its message, whatever it was never forgotten. The Uffington White Horse teaches us that a geoglyph's true power may not lie in a single, lost purpose, but in its ability to gather meaning and devotion across countless lifetimes, becoming a permanent part of a community's soul. But not all British hill figures whisper of ancient, abstract spirits. Some make a far more direct and startling statement. Carved into a steep, grassy slope near the village of Cerne Abbas in Dorset, England, stands a figure of undeniable physicality. This is the Cerne Abbas giant, a colossal, 55-meter-tall outline of a naked man, his body defined by trenches filled with white chalk, one hand raised in a powerful gesture, the other gripping a massive, 120-foot-long club. His most prominent anatomical feature, boldly rendered, has for centuries linked him inextricably to ideas of fertility, vitality, and raw, untamed nature. The landscape around him seems to support this story, with local folklore long suggesting that couples struggling to conceive could visit the giant for a blessing, and with historical records of boisterous May Day celebrations, festivals of spring and renewal being held on the very hill he inhabits. He appeared for all the world to be a pagan fertility god, perhaps a local representation of Hercules, carved into the green heart of England by ancient hands. Then science introduced a profound complication. Recent archaeological investigations, using a technique called optically stimulated luminescence dating to analyze the minerals in the chalk trenches, delivered a stunning verdict. The deepest layers of the figure, the very first cuts into the hillside, likely date not from the Iron Age or even the Roman period, but from the late 16th or early 17th century. This is a relatively recent past, a time of Shakespeare and the English Renaissance. This discovery shatters the simple, ancient god narrative and opens a door to a much more complex and perhaps more human history. If the giant is only about 400 years old, who carved him and why? One provocative theory points to the political and religious turmoil of the era. The giant stands on land that once belonged to Cerne Abbey, a medieval monastery that was dissolved by King Henry VIII. In the 17th century, the land was acquired by a wealthy family whose steward was known for his fierce anti-Puritan views. Some historians now suggest the giant could be a bold, subversive piece of political satire, a caricature aimed at mocking Oliver Cromwell, the Puritan leader who ruled England as a republic after the Civil War. The figure's imposing, aggressive posture and prominent club could be a parody of Cromwell's military rule, while his nakedness might mock Puritan ideals of modesty and restraint. It would be a gigantic, scandalous cartoon etched into the earth, a rebellious statement visible for miles. This revelation forces a fascinating confrontation with how we interpret these mysterious earthworks. The Cerne Abbas giant now stands at a crossroads of meaning. Is he a timeless symbol of natural force, or a very specific, time-bound piece of political protest? The evidence allows for both, and perhaps for layers in between. His later association with fertility rituals could represent a remarkable case of cultural reinterpretation, where a later community looked upon this striking figure and wove him into their own older traditions, grafting new myths onto an existing form. The giant challenges us to see that a geoglyph story is never truly finished. Its meaning is not locked in the moment of its creation, but evolves, accumulates, and shifts with every generation that gazes upon it, reminding us that our quest to understand these figures is also a quest to understand the ever-changing lens of our own perception. While the Cerne giant shouts his presence with bold physicality, another English hillside figure offers only a quiet, open-ended question. The Long Man of Wilmington stands on the steep slope of Windover Hill in East Sussex, a 72-meter-tall outline of a person holding a long staff in each hand. His form is created not by trenches, but by white concrete blocks replacing the original chalk that once defined him, a restoration from the 19th century that is itself a layer of his story. This figure possesses a profound neutrality. He has no facial features, no aggressive stance, no obvious symbolic attributes. He simply is a silent sentinel whose very ambiguity has made him a blank canvas for countless interpretations across the centuries. This lack of clear intent is the core of his mystery, representing the immense challenge we face when the original cultural voice has faded into silence. One line of thought connects him to the ancient landscape itself. Some researchers and enthusiasts propose he is a prehistoric surveyor, a permanent marker aligned with so-called ley lines, hypothetical alignments between ancient sites. His staves, in this view, become sighting tools, or perhaps they mark the direction of a sacred pathway or a water source visible from his high vantage point. Another theory leaps forward to the period of Roman influence in Britain, suggesting the figure could represent a Romano-British deity. The two staves bear a resemblance to the caduceus, the staff carried by the god Mercury, a divine messenger associated with travel, commerce, and crossing boundaries. Placed near the ruins of a medieval priory, a third idea emerges. Could the Long Man be a medieval pilgrim, his staves representing walking sticks, forever frozen on a journey toward a holy site? Each theory is compelling, yet none carries definitive proof. The 19th century restoration adds a crucial, complicating layer to the puzzle. When the Victorians refurbished the fading figure, they worked from existing, often faint, outlines. But how much did they interpret or even unconsciously alter the original form? This possibility means the Long Man we see today is likely a collaboration across time, a dialogue between an unknown ancient culture and a much later society's idea of what that culture should look like. He is a palimpsest, a manuscript written over where traces of older meanings linger beneath a newer text. This is true for many geoglyphs. They are not frozen moments, but living entities subject to erosion, repair, and reinterpretation. The Long Man, in his serene ambiguity, teaches a vital lesson. He represents those mysteries where the original context is so thoroughly lost that every interpretation says as much about us, the seekers, as it does about the creators. He invites us to sit with the question, to understand that some ancient whispers are so faint we may never be sure of the words, only of the profound human desire to leave a mark that says we were here. Deep beneath the living canopy of the Amazon rainforest, a different kind of giant sleeps. For centuries, the prevailing story of the Amazon was one of a pristine wilderness, a vast, untouched jungle teeming with life but sparsely inhabited by humans in the distant past. This narrative has been utterly upended by a revolutionary technology seeing through the trees. Using airborne laser scanning, called LiDAR, researchers have digitally stripped away the dense vegetation across vast tracts of western Brazil, revealing a secret landscape etched into the earth below. The imagery uncovered is astonishing. Hundreds of precise geometric enclosures, perfect circles, vast squares, and complex octagons, some over 300 meters in diameter, carved into the clay soil as ditches and embankments. These are not natural formations. They are the work of a sophisticated society that flourished here more than 2,000 years ago, transforming the very idea of a pre-Columbian Amazon. The scale of this discovery is staggering, suggesting a population far larger and more organized than ever imagined, one that actively sculpted their environment on a monumental scale. And just like the desert geoglyphs, their full, elegant form is completely invisible from the ground, hidden by the very forest that now protects them. This parallel is profound. It tells us that the impulse to shape the land into giant, coherent patterns visible only from an elevated perspective was not unique to arid coasts or high plains, but a recurring human idea, emerging independently across continents and ecosystems. The function of these Amazonian earthworks sparks a debate that mirrors those surrounding other geoglyphs, yet is uniquely shaped by the challenges of the rainforest environment. One immediate theory is that they were fortified villages. The deep ditches and raised embankments would have provided clear defensive advantages, creating boundaries to protect communities in a region where resources and territory were vital. Yet many of the enclosures show no signs of permanent, dense habitation within their walls. This leads to a second compelling possibility, that they were ceremonial centers built for large, seasonal gatherings. Imagine clans and families from across the region converging at a specific time of year, perhaps aligned with a solstice or a harvest cycle, entering through the precisely built causeways to participate in shared rituals, exchange goods, and reinforce social bonds within these colossal geometric arenas. The geometry itself is key. These are not random shapes but perfect circles and aligned squares, forms that require advanced communal planning and a shared understanding of measurement. This suggests a society with complex social organization and possibly shared cosmological beliefs, where the circle might represent the cosmos or the cyclical nature of life, and the square could symbolize the ordered world of the community. Perhaps the most ingenious theory connects these forms directly to survival. The Amazonian climate presents a paradox: immense rainfall followed by periods of drought. The land here is not naturally fertile for sustained agriculture. Researchers studying the soil and layout of the enclosures propose they were sophisticated water management and soil enrichment systems. The ditches could have served as drainage canals during torrential rains, preventing flooding, and then as reservoirs during dry seasons. The embankments, built from the excavated soil, might have been carefully layered with organic waste and charcoal to create rich, fertile plots for cultivation, a technique known as terra preta, or dark earth. In this view, the geoglyphs become a fusion of temple and farm, ritual space and agricultural engine, where the act of maintaining the sacred geometry was also the act of sustaining the community. They represent a brilliant adaptation, a way to thrive in a demanding environment by engineering the landscape itself. These hidden enclosures force us to discard the myth of a virgin forest. Instead, we see a landscape deeply and intelligently managed, a garden built by ancient hands whose grand design was meant not for the sky, but for the community that lived within its patterns, a testament to human ingenuity written in earth and shadow beneath the green roof of the world. Yet another desert holds giants with names we can almost speak. In the shimmering heat of the Colorado Desert, along the California-Arizona border, the Blythe Intaglios emerge from the rocky ground. Here, the ancient artists of the Mojave and Quechan peoples used the same subtractive technique seen in Nazca, carefully clearing away a layer of dark desert pavement, the sun-baked stones known as desert varnish, to reveal a canvas of much lighter soil beneath. The figures they left are monumental, with the largest human form stretching over 50 meters from head to toe, accompanied by a coiled serpent and other animal shapes. For generations, these immense drawings were known to the wider world only as enigmatic relics, their meaning lost to the shifting sands of time and colonial history. Their interpretation followed a familiar path, with outsiders proposing theories of astronomical markers or territorial signs, treating them as silent puzzles to be solved by science alone. But this landscape has never been silent. It holds a living voice. The crucial key to understanding the Blythe Intaglios does not come from a satellite or a carbon dating lab, but from the enduring oral histories of the Mojave and Quechan peoples themselves. For them, these are not mysterious geoglyphs, but representations of central figures from their creation stories. The largest human figure is often associated with Mastamho, the powerful creator deity who shaped the world and taught the people how to live. The serpentine form nearby might represent another vital being from their cosmology. This indigenous perspective fundamentally reframes the entire site. It transforms these earth drawings from abstract archaeological mysteries into specific, anchored chapters of a living narrative. They were not meant to be seen from above by gods, but to be known by the people. They mark a place where myth became geography, where a story about the beginning of all things was etched into the very land where it was believed to have happened. Walking near these figures, or even viewing them from a nearby rise, was an act of engaging with that story, a physical connection to the teachings of the ancestors. This insight is a powerful reminder of what is so often missing from the analysis of ancient sites, the cultural context that gives them breadth and meaning. The Blythe Intaglios challenge the notion that these creations are puzzles with a single, lost solution. Instead, they present themselves as a permanent, communal text, a way of writing history and belief directly onto the homeland, ensuring that the story of Mastamho and the creation would always be part of the landscape, waiting for those who knew how to read it. The desire to shape the earth transcends even the need for recognizable form. In the vast, forbidding lava fields of western Saudi Arabia, a different kind of ancient signature lies upon the blackened rock. Scattered across hundreds of miles of some of the most inhospitable terrain on the planet are thousands of low, crumbling stone walls. From the ground, they appear as little more than random piles of basalt, the remnants of ancient flows. But from the air, a breathtaking pattern emerges. These walls form immense rectangular structures, often with a longer head wall and two shorter side walls, creating a shape that early pilots, who first documented them from the air, immediately dubbed the gates. They are not gates in any functional sense, with no moving parts or closing mechanisms. They are outlines, frames without a canvas, some stretching over 500 meters in length, yet standing less than a meter high. Their sheer number is staggering, with recent satellite surveys revealing thousands upon thousands, creating a sprawling, cryptic network visible only from above. Their age adds another layer of profound mystery. Based on their weathering and association with other prehistoric sites, archaeologists believe these structures could be among the oldest large-scale human constructions on Earth, potentially dating back 7,000 years or more. This places their creation in a distant era, long before the pyramids of Egypt or the stones of Stonehenge were even conceived. At this point in human history, we might expect to find simple tools, early pottery, or cave paintings. But here we find an entire landscape deliberately organized into abstract geometry on a colossal scale. This immediately eliminates many conventional theories. They are clearly not dwellings, as they offer no shelter. They are not tombs or burial sites, as excavations reveal no human remains. They are not animal pens, as their low, open walls would contain nothing. So what were they? In the absence of clear practical use, the mind turns to ritual. Some researchers propose these gates were ceremonial spaces, perhaps used by nomadic groups for gatherings tied to the seasons or to celestial events. Their form, a clear enclosure open at one end, could define a sacred space, separating the ritual activities inside from the vast, chaotic desert outside. The act of building them, of moving countless stones in coordinated effort across such a brutal landscape, may have been a ritual in itself, a way for a community to leave a permanent mark of their presence and their beliefs upon an unforgiving world. Another, more pragmatic idea considers the challenges of survival. In this harsh environment where water and grazing land were fleeting treasures, the gates could have served as sophisticated territorial markers. Their distinctive shape, visible from high vantage points like nearby plateaus, might have communicated complex information to other nomadic clans, signaling a claim to a seasonal water source, a warning, or perhaps even an invitation. They become a silent stone language written across the desert, a way to navigate social relationships in a land where human contact was rare and precious. The true power of the Saudi gates lies in their radical simplicity. They challenge our deep-seated assumption that ancient monumental art must represent something, a god, an animal, a star. Here, the message is the shape itself, the rectangle, the enclosure, the deliberate line. This suggests that one of humanity's earliest architectural impulses was not to depict but to define. To take the endless, undifferentiated wilderness and impose order upon it, to create a place where before there was only space. In these stark, abstract forms, we see a fundamental human urge emerging from the dawn of time, the need to make a mark, to say, here is a place we made, and in making it, we made meaning. Across the stark, black basalt plains of Jordan's desert, the stones themselves seem to have been arranged into a vast, cryptic code. Here, in a region known as the Black Desert, thousands of ancient stone structures lie scattered, monuments built not from quarried rock, but from the very fragments of the lava-strewn landscape. Among these, some of the most intriguing are the so-called wheels, perfect circular designs with lines of stone radiating outward from a central hub like the spokes of a bicycle. From the ground, they are nearly impossible to decipher, appearing as little more than meandering lines of dark rock. But from above, their precise geometry is undeniable, revealing a pattern repeated across the arid expanse, a pattern created by nomadic peoples over 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. These wheels are not solitary wonders, but part of an immense archaeological tapestry that includes walls, pendants, and the remarkable desert kites, enormous funnel-shaped stone traps used for guiding and capturing herds of gazelle. This crucial context is the first clue to unlocking their purpose. They were built in a world where survival was a direct, daily negotiation with the environment. One leading theory suggests the wheels served as burial sites, central hubs where communities laid their loved ones to rest, the radiating spokes perhaps marking clan lineages or pathways for the spirit. Yet, their consistent circular form points toward another, equally compelling possibility, that they were celestial calendars. Researchers studying the alignment of certain wheels have noted that their spokes appear to point toward the rising sun on significant days like the solstices. For a people dependent on knowing the precise timing of seasonal rains and animal migrations, such a stone calendar etched permanently into the land would have been a vital communal tool, a way to anchor their cyclical movements to the unwavering cycles of the heavens. But perhaps the most profound insight comes from seeing the wheels not in isolation, but as one component in an integrated ritual landscape. Their placement is often intimately connected to the desert kites. It is easy to imagine a scenario where a successful communal hunt, funneling animals through those long stone walls, would be followed by a gathering at a nearby wheel. There, under the open sky, the community might process the meat, perform ceremonies of thanks, honor their ancestors, and observe the stars that guided their way. In this view, the wheel becomes a multifunctional space, a nexus where the practical act of securing food seamlessly blended with the spiritual acts of ceremony, astronomy, and remembrance. The line between the granary and the temple simply did not exist. The Jordanian wheels present a powerful idea that for our ancient ancestors, the landscape was a single, continuous text. Every stone structure, whether a hunting trap, a burial circle, or a stargazing platform, was a sentence in a larger story about how to live, how to survive, and how to find meaning beneath the infinite desert sky. Hidden within the dense forests of Russia's Ural Mountains, a giant waited 6,000 years for someone to see its face. The discovery of the Zhuhrat-Kul moose did not come from an archaeologist's trowel, but from a satellite's distant, digital eye scanning the dense canopy of a national park. The imagery revealed a colossal figure, 275 meters from antler tip to hoof, an outline formed by carefully arranged bands of stone. This is not a desert creation, but a forest giant, its form emerging from the moss and trees in a region of lakes and mountains. Its estimated age is staggering, placing its creation around 4,000 years before the Common Era. This means the people who built this moose were shaping their world into a symbol of breathtaking scale, while many human societies were still in the early stages of farming and settlement, long before the pyramids rose or the first lines were etched in Nazca. This profound antiquity forces a recalibration of our entire timeline for monumental earth art. The impulse to reshape the landscape on a giant scale is far older and more widespread than we ever imagined. The moose itself as a subject is deeply telling. For the ancient hunter-gatherer societies of the Urals, the moose was not just an animal, it was a cornerstone of survival and likely spirituality. It provided meat, hide, bone, and sinew. Its immense size and seasonal movements would have commanded respect and careful observation. The geoglyph, therefore, is almost certainly a form of veneration, a permanent homage to a being that sustained life. One compelling theory views it as an element of hunting magic, a ritual site where ceremonies were performed to honor the spirit of the moose, to ensure a successful hunt, or to express gratitude for the animal's gift of life to the community. The alignment of the figure adds another layer. Researchers note its body is oriented in a way that may correspond to the cardinal directions or to specific landmarks in the surrounding mountains, potentially tying it to migratory routes or sacred points in the landscape. Its construction in a forested, often snow-covered region, so different from the arid plains of Peru or the deserts of Arabia, is a crucial piece of evidence. It proves this ancient practice was not confined to one type of environment. From the rainforests of the Amazon to the coniferous forests of Russia, cultures independently arrived at the same profound idea: to create art so large it became part of the land itself. Art whose full meaning was held in the collective view of the community, or perhaps in the gaze of the animal spirit it represented. The Zhuhrat-Kul moose, hidden for millennia, is a powerful testament to the global nature of this mysterious human urge, and a silent reminder that our modern map of the ancient world is still being drawn, one satellite image at a time. While the Atacama giant charts the sky, its smaller companions tell a story of movement on the ground. Scattered across the arid slopes of northern Chile and southern Peru, a different kind of geoglyph emerges, one not of gods or calendars but of commerce and survival. Here, the dominant form is the llama, the sturdy pack animal that was the lifeblood of Andean civilization. These are not solitary figures, but often entire processions, caravans of llamas etched into the hillsides, their lines tracing the very paths they would have walked in life. Their placement is the first and most telling clue. They are overwhelmingly found along the routes of ancient trading networks, the invisible highways that connected distant communities across the punishing desert. This simple, powerful correlation offers one of the most direct arguments for a functional purpose behind these Earth drawings. They were likely trail markers, gigantic signposts in a landscape with few natural landmarks. For a caravan driver navigating a featureless plain of rock and sand, the sight of a familiar Llama figure on a distant hillside would have been a profound relief, a confirmation of the correct path and a promise of the journey's continuation. In this reading, the geoglyph transforms from abstract art into a vital piece of infrastructure, a communal service carved into the earth to facilitate the flow of goods, information, and people. Yet, as with all things in the ancient world, the practical and the sacred were woven from the same thread. Leading a train of precious goods through such a treacherous environment was an act fraught with risk. A single lost path could mean disaster. It is easy to see how these figures also served as ritual offerings, permanent prayers to the mountain spirits or earth deities for protection. By etching the image of the Llama into the land, the traders were perhaps seeking a blessing, ensuring the safety of their animals and the success of their venture. The act of creating the geoglyph itself might have been part of a ceremonial preparation for the journey, a way to align human endeavor with supernatural favor. Beyond guiding travelers, these figures may have communicated ownership and resource rights. A prominent Llama geoglyph near a rare water source or a patch of grazing land could have functioned as a territorial marker, a silent declaration understood by all who moved through the region. This speaks to a complex socio-economic landscape where art was used to negotiate relationships between mobile pastoral groups. The Chilean Llama figures pull the mystery of geoglyphs firmly down to earth. They argue that not all of these creations were meant for the eyes of the heavens. Some were meant for the eyes of other people, for the herder on the ridge and the trader in the valley. They represent a dialogue between communities, a way of embedding essential, life-sustaining information into the very fabric of the world they shared. In their humble, repeated forms, we see the ancient Andes not as a static collection of sites, but as a living, breathing network of movement and exchange, its pathways permanently illustrated by the silhouette of the animal that made it all possible. The spider of Nazca is a masterwork of elegant, unsettling precision. Among the many figures on the desert canvas, it stands out for its anatomical accuracy and a single, impossibly long line that extends from its body, a leg that seems to reach for something far beyond the sand. This specific detail became a cornerstone for one of the most enduring theories about the entire site. The researcher Maria Reich, who dedicated her life to studying these lines, meticulously charted this elongated leg and proposed it pointed directly toward the line of the setting sun on the equinox, that moment of perfect balance between day and night. If correct, this transforms the spider from a static drawing into a dynamic solar marker, a giant stone hand on a celestial clock. The creature itself deepens the mystery. In the harsh desert environment where water was life itself, some scholars see the spider as a powerful symbol of rain. In Andean mythology, spiders are often associated with precipitation, their webs likened to falling rain, and their sudden appearance seen as an omen of coming water. Etching this symbol into the desert could have been a permanent, collective prayer for the most precious of resources, a plea to the heavens made manifest in the earth. Yet another interpretation looks even higher. The distinctive arrangement of the spider's body, with its cluster of dots and lines, has led some to propose it is a terrestrial map of the constellation Orion, a star group deeply important to agricultural and ritual calendars across the ancient world. This single geoglyph, then, becomes a nexus of meaning. It could function simultaneously as an astronomical observatory marking the equinox, a religious icon invoking life-giving rain, and a star chart anchoring myth to the ground. This layering is the true revelation. It suggests the Nazca people did not separate science from spirituality or practicality from prayer. The spider was not merely one thing, it was all these things at once. It was an almanac that tracked time, a temple that housed hope, and a cultural storybook written in lines of stone. In its eight-legged form, we see a worldview where understanding the cosmos and pleading with it were part of the same continuous, sacred conversation with the universe. The spider's layered meaning reveals a timeless human impulse, but what happens when that same impulse strikes in our own modern era? In the vast, sun-baked outback of South Australia, a different kind of giant appeared almost overnight. This is the Marree Man, a 4.2-kilometer-long figure of an Aboriginal hunter, etched into the Red Desert Plateau in 1998. His discovery by a pilot was a shock to the world, not because of his age but because of his stunning newness. Here was a geoglyph of staggering scale, created not with stone tools and ancient patience, but with sophisticated global positioning system technology and industrial bulldozers. His modern origin instantly transformed him from an archaeological relic into a living, breathing mystery, one that asks profound questions about our own relationship with these ancient forms. The immediate intrigue was a classic whodunit. Who had the resources, the skill, and the motive to create this colossal figure in such a remote location? Anonymous notes sent to the media hinted at an American creator, referencing local indigenous terms and even leaving a small flag at the site, deepening the enigma. Yet, this modern mystery quickly collided with much older, sacred realities. The figure was placed on the traditional lands of the Arabian people, and while its form depicts an indigenous hunter, its creation was done without consultation or permission. This raised urgent questions about respect, cultural appropriation, and the impact of such a large-scale alteration on a landscape already rich with indigenous history and sacred sites. For many, it blurred the line between a spectacular piece of land art and a form of environmental and cultural intrusion. But beyond the controversy, the Marree Man serves as a powerful mirror. His very existence demonstrates that the concept of the geoglyph, the desire to leave a monumental mark on the earth visible only from above, is not a forgotten ancient practice. It is an idea that still captivates the modern imagination. Why would someone go to such extraordinary lengths in the late 20th century? The act feels like an echo, a deliberate imitation of the ancient puzzles we so admire. It suggests a deep, perhaps unconscious, desire to participate in that same mysterious tradition, to create a riddle for the future, to prove that the age of giants is not yet over. The Marree Man forces us to confront the lines we draw between art and vandalism, between homage and infringement, and between an ancient mystery and a modern performance. He stands as a stark, contemporary testament to the enduring power of the line in the land, proving that the urge to speak to the sky, or to those who fly through it, is a story that is still being written. Rising from the desert floor near the Nazca Lines, a different kind of mystery marches across a lonely hillside. This is the Band of Holes, a sprawling complex of thousands upon thousands of small, shallow pits, each roughly a meter wide, carved directly into the rocky earth. They stretch for over a mile in long, eerily precise rows, climbing the slope in a formation that looks, from the air, like the dotted lines of some cosmic sewing pattern stitched into the mountain. Their sheer number is overwhelming, an exercise in repetitive labor that speaks of immense, coordinated effort. Yet, unlike the artistic figures of Nazca, these pits offer no recognizable image, no animal form or celestial symbol. They are pure geometry and scale, a pattern whose purpose seems deliberately, frustratingly opaque. Archaeologists have carefully studied them, quickly ruling out the obvious guesses. They are not burial sites, as no human remains have been found within them. They are not storage pits, as their shallow, open nature would offer little protection for goods. And they are clearly not defensive structures. This leaves a tantalizing blank space, an absence of function that the human mind instinctively rushes to fill with grand theories. One compelling idea looks skyward, as it so often does with these sites. Could the band of holes be another form of astronomical calendar? The specific alignment and spacing of the rows might have been used to track the sun's movement or mark important seasonal dates, turning the entire hillside into a giant solar observatory. Another theory considers the social and economic needs of a complex society. Perhaps these pits were part of a massive administrative system, a way to count and record tributes of food, textiles, or other goods owed to a central authority. Each pit could represent a unit, a physical accounting system on a landscape scale. These interpretations speak to our desire to see ancient marks as profound statements about cosmos or power. But there is another, more humble possibility that is equally fascinating. Some researchers, looking at the pit's uniform size and perfect alignment, propose a startlingly practical purpose. Imagine a vast, open-air workshop covering the hillside. Each of these shallow pits could have held a vertical wooden post. Stretched between these countless posts would have been a gigantic network of ropes or cords, creating an immense loom or a drying rack of unimaginable size. This was not a temple to the stars, but a factory for the necessities of life. The region is known for its sophisticated textile traditions, and the production of fishing nets, carrying bags, or even large fabrics for communal use would have been an essential industry. In this light, the band of holes transforms from a cryptic symbol into the ghostly footprint of a monumental piece of lost infrastructure. The wooden posts rotted away centuries ago, leaving only their stone sockets behind, a skeletal outline that we, from our distant perspective, mistake for an intentional design. This theory serves as a crucial, grounding reminder. Not every ancient modification of the landscape was meant to send a message to the gods or the future. Some were solutions to everyday problems, feats of communal engineering that served the immediate needs of the community. The mystery of the band of holes, therefore, may not lie in a lost sacred meaning, but in the sheer scale of ordinary life in an extraordinary place. It challenges us to look past the symbolic and consider the practical, to see in these strange dotted lines not a code to be broken, but the shadow of a vibrant, working world that has simply vanished, leaving only its barest impressions in the earth. Far from the dotted lines of Peru, a different kind of precision emerges from the endless grasslands of Central Asia. In the vast, wind-swept steppes of Kazakhstan, a colossal square of earth lies as if drawn by a giant's ruler. This is the Ushtogay Square, a geoglyph discovered not by a pilot or an archaeologist, but by a curious eye scanning the planet through the digital window of Google Earth. Its form is stunning in its simplicity and exactness, a perfect square formed by 101 individual earthen mounds, each rising about 3 meters high. From the ground, these mounds might appear as natural hillocks or ancient burial sites, but from above, their collective intent is undeniable, a geometric statement of purpose stamped upon the land. The square's sides stretch for over 250 meters, a feat of planning and execution that required not just labor, but a shared vision and a sophisticated understanding of geometry to maintain such flawless proportions across such a great distance. Its age, estimated at over 2,000 years, places it in a time when nomadic cultures like the Soka, skilled horsemen and metalworkers, moved across these plains. This context makes the Ushtogay Square even more remarkable, a permanent, fixed structure created by peoples we often think of as perpetually in motion. Its very existence forces us to reconsider the complexity of these societies, revealing a capacity for large-scale, coordinated projects that could only be achieved by a highly organized community with a powerful, unifying goal. But what was that goal? The square offers no pictorial clues, no animal forms or human figures. Its message is its geometry alone, which has led researchers down several paths of interpretation. One prominent theory considers the mounds themselves. Their number and arrangement could point to a memorial site of great importance, perhaps a necropolis for elite members of the society. Each mound might mark a final resting place with a grand geometric layout honoring the collective legacy of a lineage or a ruling class. Another possibility looks to the sky. The square's precise orientation, with its sides aligned to the cardinal directions, suggests it could have served as an astronomical platform. Certain mounds might have functioned as sighting points for observing solstice sunrises or the movements of specific stars, turning the entire structure into a colossal observatory for tracking the cycles that governed nomadic life. Yet the sheer scale and effort also speak to a powerful social function. This could have been a ceremonial arena, a designated sacred space for large, periodic gatherings. Picture clans converging from across the steppe at an appointed time, entering this defined geometric space for rituals, trade, political assemblies, or games that reinforced social bonds. In this reading, the square is not a tomb or a tool, but a theater for community, a place where society itself was performed and reaffirmed. Its profound remoteness adds a final, poignant layer. Built far from modern settlements, it feels deliberately placed in a space between worlds. This suggests its primary audience was never outsiders, but the community that built it and the spiritual forces they revered. The Ushtogay Square stands as a testament to a different kind of monument, one where the meaning is held not in an image, but in the act of creation itself, a permanent gathering place etched into the earth to hold the memory of a people who mastered the endless horizon. These long stone walls speak not of gods or stars, but of a very different kind of human ingenuity. Stretching across the arid plains of the Middle East, from Jordan and Syria all the way to Saudi Arabia, lie thousands of ancient structures known as desert kites. Their name comes from their distinctive shape when viewed from above, a shape that reveals a breathtakingly pragmatic purpose. Imagine two long, low stone walls, sometimes extending for miles, built to form a vast V-shape that funnels toward a small, enclosed pit at the narrow end. This is not a temple or a calendar, but a trap, a colossal hunting device engineered on a landscape scale. For the nomadic peoples who built them, perhaps as early as 9,000 years ago, these kites were a revolutionary technology, a way to harness the land itself to secure their most vital resource, food. The principle was devastatingly simple yet required deep, generational knowledge. Herds of gazelle or other wild game moving across their seasonal migration routes would encounter these long, low stone walls. The animals, unwilling to jump over the unfamiliar barriers, would naturally turn and run alongside them, unknowingly guided by the converging walls into the ever-narrowing V. Their instinctual path led them directly into the enclosure at the apex where hunters waited. This was mass hunting made systematic, a communal effort that could yield enough meat and hides to sustain a group for an extended period. The construction of a single kite was a monumental undertaking, requiring the movement of countless tons of stone and a sophisticated understanding of local topography and animal behavior. The builders had to know precisely where the animals traveled, how they reacted to obstacles, and how to position their walls to exploit the natural lay of the land, using hills and valleys to hide the trap's full form until it was too late. From ground level, these walls would have appeared as simple, meandering lines of rock, but from a high vantage point, perhaps a nearby plateau where lookouts were stationed, the entire geometric design would snap into focus, a strategic diagram written across the desert. This is where the kite becomes a profound kind of geoglyph. It is a purely functional shape whose full, intelligent form is only comprehensible from an elevated perspective. It represents the ancient human mind abstracting the hunt into geometry, turning the chaotic chase into a predictable, repeatable equation of stone and motion. Over centuries, as these structures persisted in the landscape, their meaning likely deepened. A place of such consistent, life-giving success would naturally become sacred. The kites may have later served as sites for ceremonies before or after a hunt, places to honor the spirits of the animals and give thanks for the community's survival. What began as a tool for survival slowly accumulated the weight of ritual, blurring the line between the practical and the spiritual. The desert kites force us to expand our definition of these ancient earth drawings. They show us that the first marks we made on the world were not always prayers or portraits, but sometimes brilliant, large-scale solutions to the most fundamental human needs. In their silent, sprawling VS, we see the blueprint of survival itself, permanently etched into the earth. Among the hummingbirds and spiders of the Nazca Desert, one figure stands utterly apart from the natural world. On a lonely slope, a strange being seems to look back at the sky from which we now view it. This is the figure many call the astronaut, a humanoid outline with an oversized, rounded head, one arm raised as if in greeting or warning. Its isolation and unnatural form have made it a magnet for the most extraordinary theories, transforming it from an archaeological artifact into a modern icon of mystery. For proponents of ancient astronaut ideas, this figure is not a mystery at all, but clear evidence. They see a helmeted space traveler, a visitor from the stars immortalized by a culture that witnessed something beyond their understanding. In this view, the raised hand is a salute, and the entire Nazca Plain becomes a landing strip or a message for celestial beings to return. This interpretation taps into a powerful, enduring desire for a past filled with cosmic wonder and lost advanced knowledge, offering a narrative that feels both thrilling and profound. Mainstream archaeology, however, looks at the same lines and sees a deeply human story rooted in the spiritual landscape of the Andes. Researchers point out that the figure's large head is far more consistent with representations of ritual headdresses or masks found in other Andean art. The pose, with one arm raised, is a common motif in depictions of shamans or deities engaged in dance or invocation. Within this context, the figure likely represents a spiritual practitioner, perhaps in a state of trance induced by sacred plants like the San Pedro cactus, a bridge between the human world and the spirit realm. The so-called astronaut, then, may be a portrait of a shaman mid-ceremony, his altered consciousness symbolized by the enlarged head, his gesture one of calling upon the powers of the mountains or the sky. This grounded interpretation connects the figure directly to the lived spiritual experiences and artistic vocabulary of the people who made it. The debate surrounding this single image is about more than one geoglyph. It is a cultural clash over how we see the past. On one side is a scientific method that seeks answers within the framework of cultural context, anthropology, and verifiable evidence. On the other is a popular imagination that yearns for grand, unifying secrets that challenge conventional history. The geoglyph becomes a canvas, and we project onto it our own deepest questions and desires about human origins and potential. It asks us to consider why we are so drawn to the extraterrestrial explanation when a human, spiritual one is equally extraordinary. The story of the shaman, of a person seeking connection with the universe through ritual and sacred plants, is itself a testament to the incredible breadth of human experience and belief. The enduring fascination with the astronaut figure reminds us that these ancient lines do more than record the past. They actively shape our present, inviting us to wonder not just about who made them, but about why we today need the stories we tell about them. High on the windswept plains of the Bolivian Altiplano, an even greater network of lines awaits. The Sajama lines are a phenomenon of staggering scale and simplicity, a web of thousands upon thousands of perfectly straight paths etched into the earth around the sacred Sajama volcano. They cover an area nearly 15 times larger than the more famous Nazca Lines, a colossal maze of human intention visible only from the air. Their creation spans millennia, with indigenous communities beginning this work over 3,000 years ago and maintaining it through generations, a continuous act of landscape writing. Unlike the pictorial figures of Nazca, these are not images of animals or gods. They are pure lines, paths radiating outward like threads in a spider's web, connecting points across a vast, open world. And this is the first profound clue to their purpose. These lines do not form a picture to be seen, but a network to be walked. They physically link villages, ancient burial towers known as cholpas, water sources, and distinctive natural features, stitching the human and spiritual geography into a single, interconnected whole. This transforms our understanding of what a geoglyph can be. Here, the line is not a drawing, it is a journey. The most compelling theory sees these paths as permanent pilgrimage routes, etched into the land to guide feet as well as spirits. In the harsh, high-altitude environment of the Altiplano, where survival depended on community and connection, ritual movement was a cornerstone of life. A person might walk a specific line from their village to a sacred spring for a ceremony, or to a cholpa to honor ancestors, following a straight, preordained path that had been walked by countless generations before them. Each journey was a physical prayer, a way to engage directly with the spiritual power of the landscape, with the towering volcano always a silent witness. But the function was beautifully dual. While serving spiritual needs, these lines also reinforced the practical social and trade networks that sustained life. They were the highways of their time, the most direct routes between settlements across the flat, treeless plain. By walking these lines during seasonal gatherings or trade missions, communities strengthened social bonds, exchanged news and goods, and maintained a shared cultural map. The act of maintaining the lines, of keeping them clear of encroaching vegetation, was itself a communal ritual that reaffirmed ownership, responsibility, and connection to the land. The Sajama lines present geoglyphs not as static art for a celestial audience, but as dynamic components of a living, breathing landscape of human activity. They were meant not just to be seen, but to be used, to be felt beneath the feet. This adds a crucial, vibrant dimension to the mystery. It reminds us that for ancient cultures, the sacred and the everyday were woven together in the same fabric, and that sometimes the most profound mark you can leave on the world is not a symbol, but a path inviting others to walk beside you, connecting point to point, person to person, across the boundless expanse of time. The lines of the Paracas Peninsula point toward a different kind of threshold. Here, on a windswept hill overlooking the Pacific, the earth is marked not with animals or gods, but with a stark, radiating asterisk of straight paths carved into the soil. These lines stretch outward from a central high point like the spokes of a silent, stony wheel, a geometric pattern of profound simplicity. Their meaning, however, becomes powerfully clear when you see what lies at their feet. This hill is not a solitary canvas, but the heart of a vast necropolis, an ancient city of the departed. The slopes and surrounding plains are dotted with countless underground burial chambers, the final resting places for the Paracas people over 2 millennia ago. This direct physical connection between the lines and the tombs offers one of the most compelling and context-rich explanations for any geoglyph in the world. These were likely sacred pathways, meticulously prepared routes for ceremonial processions. Imagine a solemn line of people climbing the hill, carrying carefully prepared mummy bundles of their loved ones, wrapped in layers of magnificent textiles toward their eternal chambers. Each radiating line could have served as a designated route for a specific family or clan, guiding them to their ancestral plot within the sprawling cemetery. In this light, the geoglyph transforms from a mysterious drawing into a functional part of a deeply important cultural practice. It delineated sacred space, organizing the landscape of memory and ensuring that the journey from life to the afterlife was conducted along a proper, honored path. This explicit link to funerary rites provides a rare moment of clarity in our search for meaning. It shows us a geoglyph fully integrated into the known spiritual life of its creators, a permanent architectural feature for the most significant of human passages. Here, the lines do not point to stars or water, but directly to the ancestors, making the hill itself a permanent monument to the community's enduring connection to those who came before. But these stone circles and radiating lines hold another, more profound purpose. They are not just markers on a map, they are conductors of belief. Researchers suggest these arrangements were designed to channel spiritual energy, to create a sacred geography that connected all realms of existence. The lines might have served as pathways for the spirits of the departed, guiding them from their resting places within the circles toward the heavens, or perhaps aligning their journey with specific celestial events like the solstice sunrise. In this view, the entire landscape becomes a cosmic diagram, a permanent ritual space where every stone is placed with intention to mediate between the living, the ancestors, and the cosmos. This transforms our understanding of a geoglyph from a solitary image into an architectural component of a living belief system. The Mongolian deer stone landscapes illustrate a holistic vision where art, astronomy, memory, and spirituality are woven into a single, enduring tapestry of stone. Here, the message is not in a single figure, but in the relationship between all the parts, a sacred conversation written across the steppe that was meant not just to be seen from above, but to be walked through, felt, and experienced as part of a ceremony that connected the community to everything that came before and everything that lay beyond. The rainforest canopy of western Brazil hides more than just ancient enclosures. Further south, in the state of Acre, the same airborne scanning technology has revealed a landscape of startling geometry. Here, the earthworks take on a familiar yet distinct form, with precise circles and squares etched into the clay soil, their trenches and embankments creating clear, geometric boundaries in the green expanse. Known as the Joko geoglyphs, these structures are cousins to the Amazonian enclosures, yet they tell a subtly different story about life in the ancient rainforest. For a long time, the first and most obvious guess for such clear, walled forms was defense. It seemed logical that communities would build such structures to protect themselves. But the archaeology here tells another tale. Excavations within these perfect circles and squares reveal a notable absence, a lack of evidence for permanent, dense settlement. Researchers find no remains of long-term housing, no thick layers of everyday waste that would indicate a fortified village. Instead, the findings point toward something more periodic, more social. The soil holds traces of ceremonial pottery, fragments of special vessels not used for daily cooking, and evidence of large communal hearths. This paints a picture not of constant habitation, but of intentional, temporary gathering. The most compelling theory now sees these geometric arenas as grand meeting grounds, built for periodic ceremonial gatherings that drew people from across a vast and dispersed territory. In a landscape where communities might be separated by miles of dense forest, maintaining social bonds was not just a matter of friendship, it was a cornerstone of survival. These geoglyphs provided the infrastructure for that essential human need. Imagine groups traveling along forest paths or rivers, converging at a pre-arranged time, perhaps aligned with a solstice or the fruiting of a key tree. They would enter through the precise causeways into the geometric space, a place set apart from the ordinary world. Here, they would feast together from those special pots, exchange goods and stories, arrange marriages, and perform shared rituals that reinforced their common identity. The geoglyph itself, the act of creating and maintaining this perfect circle or square, was a communal project that solidified their connection before a single ceremony even began. Their construction reveals a deep understanding of the rainforest's rhythm. The earthworks were likely built during the seasonal droughts when the ground was firmer and the forest more navigable. This timing is crucial. It shows these gatherings were planned around the natural calendar, turning a period of environmental hardship into an opportunity for profound social renewal. In this light, the Joko saw earthworks become socio-political anchors in a green sea. They were not forts against outsiders, but magnets that pulled people together. This theory elegantly reframes our view of geoglyphs. It argues that some of these colossal earthworks served a function as vital as any temple or observatory. They were the original social network, physical hubs for community, building etched permanently into the earth to ensure that across a vast and challenging territory, no one was ever truly alone. While the Amazonian circles speak of social gatherings, another form of geometric order has emerged from the plains of northern India. In the state of Uttar Pradesh, recent surveys have revealed sprawling patterns of stones, carefully placed to form immense lines and geometric enclosures across the landscape. These are not the intricate animal figures of Nazca or the towering mounds of Kazakhstan, but something more elemental, a language of alignment and arrangement written with the most basic of materials. From the ground, these stones might appear as random boulders or the scattered remnants of ancient field clearing. But from an aerial perspective, their hidden intent is unlocked, revealing perfect lines that stretch toward the horizon and form large, deliberate shapes. This discovery is particularly thrilling because it belongs to a shadowy chapter of Indian prehistory, a time before written records, where the stories of these early societies are told only by what they left upon the earth. Each aligned stone is a silent word in a forgotten sentence. The immediate question is one of purpose. What drove these ancient communities to coordinate the movement of such heavy stones into these precise, large-scale formations? One compelling theory looks upward, as it so often does with these mysteries. The alignments may have functioned as rudimentary but monumental astronomical observatories. Specific lines could have been oriented to capture the first light of the solstice sun or the rising point of a significant star, turning the entire landscape into a communal calendar that marked the passage of seasons essential for planting and harvest. This practical need for tracking time could have been seamlessly woven into a spiritual reverence for the cycles of the cosmos. Another possibility considers the social and spiritual world of these early peoples. The enclosures formed by these stones might have served as sacred ritual spaces, perhaps for ceremonies honoring ancestors or marking important life passages. The act of gathering and placing the stones itself could have been a powerful communal ritual, bonding people together and physically defining a place where the ordinary world met the spiritual realm. The sheer scale of the alignments also suggests a third, more pragmatic function: territorial marking. For early agricultural societies establishing permanent claims to fertile land, these visible, imposing lines in the landscape would have served as clear, unambiguous boundaries. They were a permanent statement of ownership and identity, a way to organize the land and its resources among growing, settled communities. The profound significance of the Uttar Pradesh alignments lies not in a solved puzzle, but in the simple fact of their discovery. They stand as a powerful testament that the phenomenon of large-scale landscape art is a global story still being written. Every pass of a satellite, every aerial survey, has the potential to reveal another chapter. These stones, silent for millennia, remind us that our maps of the ancient world are astonishingly incomplete. Each new geoglyph uncovered, whether in the deserts of Arabia or the plains of India, does more than add another item to a list. It has the power to rewrite regional histories, forcing us to reconsider the complexity, the organization, and the spiritual depth of peoples whose names we will never know. They challenge the quiet assumption that the past is fully catalogued, whispering instead of countless other giants still sleeping beneath forests, sands, and fields, waiting for the right perspective to bring their stories back to light. But some giants are not merely hidden, they are drowned. In the deep, clear waters of Fuxian Lake in China's Yunnan province, sonar waves have painted a ghostly picture of the lake bed. What they revealed were not smooth sediments, but massive, puzzling structures of stone. From the watery darkness, circles and long, straight lines emerge, geometric patterns of a scale that suggests deliberate human hands, not random nature. Their potential age is staggering, possibly stretching back thousands of years, to a time when this lake floor was dry, inhabited land. This discovery plunges the mystery of geoglyphs into an entirely new element, transforming them from desert sketches into sunken architecture, a lost city of form waiting beneath the waves. The debate surrounding them is fundamental. Are they the ruins of a forgotten civilization, or simply a breathtaking geological accident? Some researchers point to the precise angles and repetitive shapes as clear signs of construction, while others caution that tectonic forces and ancient landslides can create surprisingly regular formations. If they are indeed man-made, they represent a unique and haunting category, the submerged geoglyph. Their potential functions open windows into a world that no longer exists. They could be the foundations of a settlement, a ritual center built on shores that later vanished as water levels rose over centuries. The circular structures might outline ceremonial plazas or the bases of large dwellings, while the long lines could be roadways or defensive walls, all now serving as a blueprint for a community lost to time. Another practical theory considers the lake's bounty. The patterns might be the remnants of massive stonefish weirs, cleverly designed traps that harness the water's flow to catch food for a large population. This idea connects the structures directly to survival, turning them from temples into tools. The Fuxian Lake patterns introduce a powerful, often overlooked element in our search for these ancient marks: environmental change. They show us that geoglyphs are not always abandoned, they can be actively reclaimed. Rising waters, shifting coastlines, and changing climates can swallow entire landscapes, taking their secrets to a depth where only technology can find them. This forces a profound shift in interpretation. We cannot understand a submerged geoglyph by looking at the lake today. We must reconstruct the lost world in which it was built, a world of dry land and living people. These watery lines are a poignant reminder that the Earth itself is a dynamic canvas, and that some of the most profound messages from the past are not written on stable ground, but lie in wait beneath the surface, challenging us to see the world not as it is, but as it once was. A final giant lies coiled in the green hills of North America. The Great Serpent Mound of Ohio is a different kind of earthwork, built not by scraping away the surface, but by piling it high. For over 1,000 years, this 411-meter-long effigy has rested upon a ridge, a sinuous form of undulating curves that culminates in a gaping jaw poised to swallow what appears to be a giant egg. It is a mound, a sculpture of earth and stone, yet its principle is the same as the desert lines, a colossal figure whose majestic, unified form only reveals itself when you rise above the treetops. To stand at its tail is to see only a grassy berm vanishing into the woods, a mystery hidden by its own scale. The cultures who built it, ancestors of the fort, ancient or perhaps the earlier Adena peoples, left no written records, only this breathtaking whisper in the soil. Its shape is unmistakable, a serpent in mid-coil, a symbol of profound power in countless indigenous cosmologies. And like so many of its global cousins, its body is aligned with the heavens. The serpent's head is oriented precisely toward the point on the horizon where the sun sets on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. This is no accident. It anchors the mythic creature to the most powerful solar event, suggesting the serpent itself might be a celestial being, perhaps a representation of a constellation or a mythical sky snake that governed the seasons. This astronomical alignment fuels one of the central debates about its function. Was it a giant observatory, a compass of Earth that helped mark the solar calendar for agricultural or ceremonial cycles? The precision of its curves and its high vantage point support this idea of a landscape engineered for watching the sky. Yet the mound's location within a region rich with ancient burial sites points toward a more solemn purpose. It rests near, though not directly upon, several burial mounds, leading many scholars to propose it served as a vast ceremonial space for mortuary rituals. In this view, the serpent was a guardian or a psychopomp, a creature that could navigate the boundaries between worlds, guiding the spirits of the departed on their journey. The oval shape in its jaws could symbolize the sun, the moon, or the cosmic egg of creation, making the entire figure a story about death, rebirth, and the eternal cycles of the cosmos told in earth and grass. Another theory considers its form more pragmatically. The serpent's three major coils align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. This has led some to see it as a gigantic spiritual compass, a permanent orientation device that rooted the community's sacred geography to the fundamental axes of the world. Each interpretation, from solstice marker to spirit guide to cosmic map, speaks to a culture seeking to understand their place within a vast, ordered universe. The Great Serpent Mound serves as a perfect, powerful conclusion to this global journey. From the deserts of Peru to the forests of Russia, from the steppes of Kazakhstan to this grassy Ohio ridge, we find the same profound impulse. It is the human drive to take the stories that define us, our myths of creation and destruction, our observations of the stars, our reverence for the ancestors and the animals that sustain us, and imprint them onto the very skin of the earth. These are not random scratches or forgotten engineering projects. They are conversations with the divine, written in a language of scale meant for an audience of gods, spirits, or simply the future. They prove that long before flight we dreamed of perspective, and in that dream we left messages for the sky and for ourselves, reminders that we are part of something much larger, a story written in lines only the horizon can fully read. The sheer diversity of these 25 giants reveals a profound truth. There is no universal key that unlocks every geoglyph. A single, neat explanation is a modern desire imposed on an ancient, multifaceted world. Instead, these earthworks form a grand tapestry of human intention, where threads of astronomy, faith, society, and survival are woven together into a single, resilient fabric. To ask if a geoglyph was a calendar or a temple is to ask the wrong question. For the cultures that built them, it was likely both and more. The same lines that tracked the solstice sun could also guide a ceremonial procession, mark a clan's territory, and signal a safe path to water. These functions were not separate categories in an ancient mind. They were interconnected aspects of a unified life, where understanding the stars was a form of prayer, and a prayer was a practical strategy for communal survival. This multifunctional view transforms how we see these silent forms. Their debated purpose is not a problem to be solved, but a feature to be understood. It reflects the beautiful, complex integration of the ancient worldview. A society did not carve a giant hummingbird solely because they admired birds, or only because it pointed to the solstice. They did it because the hummingbird was a celestial messenger, its flight a metaphor for life's energy, and its alignment a way to anchor that sacred story to the turning of the seasons. The spiritual meaning gave power to the astronomical observation, and the astronomical observation gave divine order to the spiritual belief. They were two sides of the same stone. This leads to a crucial insight about the most puzzling feature of all, their scale. If the full design was invisible from the ground, who was the audience? The answer may be that the audience was never meant to be human in the conventional sense. The perspective required was not an earthly one. These were messages for a different order of perception, intended for gods in the sky, for ancestral spirits residing in the mountains, or for the celestial bodies themselves who viewed the earth from their lofty paths. The geoglyph was a permanent offering, a prayer in physical form, designed to be comprehended by the very forces it sought to honor or influence. In this light, the inability of the makers to see their own complete work becomes an act of profound faith, not a logistical oversight. It was an acknowledgement that some conversations are meant for a higher plane. To see geoglyphs through this integrated lens is to grant ancient cultures the sophistication and depth they deserve. It moves us beyond seeing them as primitive people leaving mysterious doodles, and instead as profound thinkers who use the largest canvas available, the earth itself, to inscribe the principles of their existence. They wove their understanding of time, their reverence for nature, their social structures, and their economic needs directly into the landscape. Each line and mound was a sentence in a continuous story about how to live in harmony with a vast, often demanding world. This perspective does not simplify the mystery, it deepens it, inviting us to appreciate the rich, layered intelligence that turned dirt and stone into a dialogue with eternity. From the deserts of Peru to the steppes of Kazakhstan, these 25 massive geoglyphs stand as silent, sprawling testaments to human creativity, spirituality, and ingenuity. They are more than ancient puzzles, they are profound statements. Each one represents a community's deepest questions and highest aspirations, etched permanently into the earth. They challenge our modern perspective, forcing us to look beyond the human scale and consider how ancient peoples conceived of their place in a vast, interconnected cosmos. To stand before one of these giants is to feel the weight of that question, to sense a dialogue that stretches across centuries. The ongoing debates over their functions are not just academic exercises, they are vital conversations about how we understand the past. They force us to confront the beautiful complexity of the ancient human experience, revealing the diverse, ingenious ways different cultures found meaning, marked time, and communicated with forces seen and unseen. Every new theory, from astronomical calendar to sacred pathway, adds another layer to our appreciation, reminding us that a single line in the sand can hold a universe of intention. As satellite imagery and scanning technology peel back forests and deserts to reveal ever more of these hidden wonders, the mystery does not shrink, it deepens. Each discovery expands the map of this ancient practice, proving it was a global phenomenon, a shared human impulse that emerged independently across continents. With every new figure revealed, we are granted more questions than answers, and that is the true gift. It leaves us in a state of awe, humbled by the scale of their vision and the depth of their thought. This journey above the Earth's canvas inevitably turns the question back on us. What messages are we writing into the landscape today? What colossal patterns, visible only from a future perspective, will define our era for generations yet to come? The lines we draw now, in concrete and light, will one day tell a story about who we were and what we valued. If this exploration of Earth's hidden art has captivated you, we would love to hear your thoughts. Which geoglyph speaks to you most, and which theory about its purpose feels most compelling? Share your favorite in the comments below, and subscribe to continue exploring history's greatest mysteries with us.